Namaste. It's nice to see you all, to be here. And today I have a subject that is fun, and it's called the Path of Ananda. And the reason that I bring this subject up today is because, could you turn it down slightly? In India, I think that the thing that we have advertised the most is the path of Kriya Yoga. And the community in Pune is called the Kriya Yoga community. And all around India, we advertise in our meditation classes, Kriya Yoga. And Kriya Yoga, a technique that was given to us from Babaji to learn Mahashai and the self-realization gurus. This technique is so fabulous and effective. And when you read the autobiography of a yogi, you get to this chapter, it's called Kriya Yoga. And it describes how you can achieve self-realization in this lifetime. And here's all you got to do. This technique will do it. And it's hard to beat that. You know, it's like, wow, that is amazing. And it truly is amazing. And when I became acquainted with the yoga teachings, I read the Bhagavad Gita, and I had read some books on philosophy and such. And then I read Autobiography of a Yogi. And to become a yogi, just like any other area of life, you've got to do things that you aren't yet doing. And so, and the thing is that the list of things that you're not doing is pretty long. And you need to do this whole list of things in order to get so that you can get the Kriya technique. Because this technique is going to be like your rocket ship to God. But along the way, you begin to realize that the Kriya technique by itself really, I wouldn't say it's not false advertising, but it doesn't tell the whole story. There's a lot that goes with it. And so we talk about the Kriya Yoga lifestyle. And for years here in Gurgaon, we did one Sunday a month we would do Kriya Yoga in action, which was to communicate this idea that Kriya Yoga is not just a technique but a way of life, and you've got to integrate it into all of your life. Well, when I came to Ananda and I found a group of people practicing Kriya Yoga, but in my mind, if I think about the way I was thinking, part of me felt incredibly blessed. I found my guru. I now have found my spiritual family, and so I felt very supported. But in my mind, I have to admit, a lot of the time I was thinking about that big long list of things that I wasn't doing. I wasn't doing, yoga postures every day. I wasn't doing energization twice a day. I wasn't meditating. I mean, it says in the chapter on Kriya Yoga that you got to do Kriya 8 hours a day. Whoa! I like to do it for 8 minutes. It's not that easy. And one of the great, what I would say, shortcomings of the way that the spiritual life is presented in most religions is that the goal of living the spiritual life is to be rewarded when you die. This is really, and probably even more importantly for most people, they're not even as concerned about the reward as they're concerned about potential punishments. They don't want to go down there forever. I mean, that is a huge stick. That is a fantastic fear that we have. And in our minds, it's so easy to look at all of the things that we need to do. We have to avoid the pitfalls so we don't fail. But we don't often talk about and enter into fully the benefits. And the first thing to remember about the benefits of the Ananda path is the name itself, Ananda. Ananda is God, Satchidananda. God is Ananda, one of the 8 attributes. But Ananda is not just the goal. Ananda is the path. Ananda is the way that we live. Ananda is a consciousness that we enter into from day one. From the very first day that I arrived at Ananda, I found a group of people. They weren't in Samadhi, but they were in Ananda. They were experiencing a greater amount of Ananda than any group of people that I'd ever met. And of course, you could say, well, we would say that the source of Ananda is God. But if you look outwardly in any environment, you can usually find the power center of it. Of the qualities of energy in that environment, what's the most powerful expression of that energy? And of course, at Ananda Village, it was Swami Kriyananda. And so we all lived to be in Ananda, to practice Ananda, and in the beginning, it was associated with being with Swamiji. If you just saw his face, there was a chant. We chanted this all the time in the early years of Ananda, and we haven't done it often for many years now. Anandam, Anandam. Anandam, Anandakam, Prasannam, Jnanaswarupam, Nijevate Rupam, Jogindram Hityam, Bhavarogavaityam, Srimat Guru Tvam, Aham Namami. And it ends, Shanamapi Sachana Sangha Kireka, Bhavati Bhavanava, Tarani Yoga. Just one moment in the presence of the Guru, in the presence of a saint, can be your raft over the ocean of delusion. And in the beginning, we live for those moments when you feel touched. And it's, yes, we want to be touched in meditation, but, oh man, when you sat at Swami's feet, you were touched. If you were open. Because many people came and left. Why did some people stay? They got open. They got touched. They felt Ananda. And they spent time. Just one moment can be your raft. What if you have many moments? And in the end, you have to realize that rafts don't go, they're not like time travel. They're not like beam me up, Scotty, in teleportation. They take a journey. But the idea is that when you have moments in the presence, that becomes the mechanism through which you eventually merge into Ananda. And understanding that process, understanding that what is it in that is an interesting story. There was a very well-known psychic in America. I don't know, I think that he was of Master's era, age-wise. And Edgar Casey. And he used to give people past life readings, and I have to say I'm not a big fan of most of the people who do that. They're not really accurate. He did have a good reputation. I'm unaware of Master ever commenting on him. But Swamiji quoted a story about his life, that one of his readings that I thought was very meaningful. Edgar Casey had observed that he had seen met numerous souls that had lived in the time of Jesus Christ. And that he saw this pattern that if they had just met him, if they had just seen him, that they in future incarnations were powerfully brought to spiritual opportunities. That he saw this pattern over a larger body of people. And this is, to me, a story that illustrates how the power of those moments, the power of the presence of a spiritual sun, a spiritual magnetic power, how incredible that effect can be. Yes, it becomes that liberating presence, but if you don't get liberated, you still get blessed in incredible ways. So I came to Ananda and I found this group of people who were incredibly poor financially. I mean, 90% of the people at Ananda Village in the early years, a lot of years, lived underneath the poverty level in America and struggled with financial survival and physical survival, because we lived out in the forest, up in the mountains. In the winter it snowed. And not everybody had running water. Most people didn't in the early years. And they lived in teepees and tents and trailers and eventually some cabins. But one fellow lived in a tar paper shack. It was very similar to what you see in any one of the slum areas here in Gurgaon and India. But when you saw people at Ananda, you never thought about where they lived, what kind of car they had if they had a car, how much money they had, what work they did. None of that made any difference. The only thing that we saw in each other was Guruji, Ananda, a seeker. And we didn't have to be finders. We just had to be enthusiastic seekers. And in that seeking, we found the beginning of Ananda, the beginning of the experience of God's bliss in our consciousness. And so, what do you do when you find a restaurant that has really good food? You go back. Yes. You tell your friends. This is what we did. Our whole life became going back. Yes, Swamiji. Oh, Swamiji, you're going to Los Angeles? Can I come? Or, even better, oh, you're going to Los Angeles? I'll see you there. These people who lived in the poverty level would drive 450 miles, 650 kilometers, to have Satsang with Swami. And sometimes, if you went on one of these trips, you never knew what it would turn into. You see, sometimes you got to see Swamiji speak. That was it. Then you went home. Maybe you got a little eye contact. But if you happen to be one of those people who was thinking about, how can I maximize my efforts here, you would put yourself in Swami's walking path. You know, you just in case something might nice up, at least you'd get, oh, hi, Swami. Oh, hi. Wow, great. But sometimes it'd be, oh, one wonderful talk, Swamiji. Wow. A great crowd. Yes, sir. Oh, we're going to dinner. Let's go. Suddenly you're going to dinner with Swamiji. A group of people, of course, would always go. Line up at the table, 10, 15, 20 people. But you wouldn't have any money. So what do? You order like either nothing, or you felt like you had to order just to, so you buy some small thing, a drink, or just a little inexpensive, the piece of food, something small. And A couple times people got away with that, but one day Swamiji started a new tradition. He said, well, you know what, here, we're all having it, let's just split the bill. And Swamiji loved to go to really nice restaurants. So suddenly your drink and little speck turned into a big bill. And then you can see people, hey, I don't have any money, can you help me out, you know? I'll pay you back next month, you know? But even then, people would still go to dinner if they got the chance. They didn't have the money. At Ananda, people would pledge money that they didn't have for years. Okay, I'll give some project would come up, some need would come up, say, well, I'll give you $25, $30 every month for the next year. I don't have it. I don't know where it's going to come from. So I was joking with some of the fellows earlier. At Ananda, you see, the worldly person works and expects to get paid. But the devotee pays to work. And then we don't even call it work. We call it service. And the reason we serve is because of Ananda, what we get from it. So someone will get in the car, drive all the way across the state to help sell books, set up the books, maybe or maybe not have a conversation with Swamiji, maybe or may not get invited to dinner. But because there's bliss in every part of that, do you think that when they drove in that car for 6, 7, 8 hours, the whole time they were going, and then, no. Everything was, this is hard. I'm cold. I'm digging a ditch in the rain. I don't have any money, and then they want more money from me. The rent is due. I have no idea where it's going to come from. Not only acceptance, but bliss. So now I think, okay, let me take another step forward. Now, as Ananda grew, we had to expand our perception of what that Ananda was. And even in the early years, I mean, Swamiji did multiple programs per week for many years. So the people who were really serious, they were there as often as they could be. But gradually, Ananda physically became bigger. And Swamiji started going out and doing more and more. And there weren't as many physical opportunities to be with him, though we all clung to that possibility. And eventually, we had, as we matured spiritually, began to realize that Ananda is not a person. Ananda is not a place. But Ananda is our connection to God within. And when we practiced Ananda as a group, in Swamiji's presence, we became magnetized and we created the moments. We had many moments. Moments when we felt that we were in the presence. This is the real meaning of satsang and darshan. When you have that moment, what a moment can be a second or it can be a lifetime. Because time doesn't really exist. You just have to learn how to get in the moment, in the presence, in the Ananda. And yes, we use meditation, we use Kriya Yoga, we use the Sangha, we do all these things, but we have to recognize that it's not these outward things that are the definition of Ananda. It's being in the moment, living in that consciousness. So I meet so many people who say, well, my life's so difficult, and then they start with a list of things that they can't do, which I had the same list. I still have the same list. Well, it's a different list, but the list never ends. Because you're never going to do as many things as you could do. Sister Gyanamata, when she said, well, what would you, after many years, somebody asked her, what would you do differently? She said, more and better. That was her. The whole definition of what she would do is more and better. More and better of what? Ananda. Connecting. Having those moments. And recognizing that those moments are not limited by the physical presence of a saint, but by our ability to tune into God's presence, which is omnipresence. And it's energized in the presence of a saint, but it's not limited. And as when you're a child, you've got to be with parents. You've got to get fed and comforted and guided. But as you grow, you learn to be more and more independent. In the spiritual life, that independence is actually deeper and deeper connectedness. You feel more and more connected to that Ananda. And so it takes over your life. It becomes the foundational response to life is not but and it's not it's We begin to see that every life experience is an opportunity. This is one of the things that we learned being around Swamiji, is that every moment in life is an opportunity to be more in the presence of God. We think that God is only going to be with us, talk to us, guide us once in a while in those special moments. But God is with us all the time. The only reason we don't perceive that presence is because we are not tuned into it. God will help you walk down the street. God will help you to not get hit by a car when you're crossing the street. God will help you to get the food from the plate to the mouth. God is not too busy to help you eat. And in that moment when the food is coming to your mouth, you might get in that inner conversation, you shouldn't be eating that. Then what are you going to do? Remember, in the saints, sometimes they eat things that are the story about the guru who the disciple decided to test him, gave him poison. The guru drank the poison, and then I don't know if you remember if he was a disciple, but he was a visitor, and then he became ill. In that presence, everything has changed. Nothing bad can happen in that when you're in that presence. To the yogi, there's no such thing as good karma or bad karma. There's just karma. And why do we even talk about karma? Because it has a power to keep us from being in Ananda. And so we're concerned, and that's why we practice Kriya Yoga. We want to grow in our awareness of Ananda so that the world that we live in becomes Ananda instead of seeing it as this is Ananda, that's not. And this is what we've learned over the years, is that Ananda has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Physically. But our connection to that spirit has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and we no longer define that connection as a person or a space, but as that moment. How to be in the presence. So the path of Ananda is to walk towards Ananda, but in Ananda. The Festival of Light, Swamiji, he quotes some very important teaching. He says, to as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God. We have to receive it. We have to open ourselves up to it. And he says that suffering has been exchanged for joy. We do not walk the path of suffering. We walk the path of bliss. And the more we enter into that, then we live for that bliss, and then you're happy to pay. You're happy to pay to have bliss. It's worth it. It's a much better investment than candy or other amusements, because it brings bliss to your whole being, and it doesn't cause you to be depressed afterwards. It lifts you up and colors the totality of your life experience. it lasts, and it gets deeper and deeper. And one moment leads to another, and then eventually when you're riding on the raft, it gets across the ocean. And this is the Path of Ananda. If you think about construction and life in general, pipes. Take a pipe. It's a conduit. Stuff goes through it. Could be a pipe for liquids or gases. It could be a sewer pipe. It could be an air pipe, fresh air. It can be Amrita, a pipe of Amrita. I haven't walked into an actual physical, you turn on the spigot and Amrita comes out. But then you think about it, how would that work? Where is the spigot that Amrita comes out? It's inside, it's in the spine. The spine is the pipe. And when you put negative energies, limiting energies through the pipe, that's what you experience. Same pipe can be shifted to carry more and more refined things. So the key is not that we live in bodies and personalities, but the qualities of energy that flow through our lives. And the more we attune ourselves to the sattvic qualities that are connected to the attributes of spirit, then that's how we're living. And we don't need to worry about getting to the omnipresent experience of that sattvic awareness, but we practice it wherever we are. Don't think, what am I not doing? Think, what am I doing? Have I spent 5 minutes listening to kirtan? Have I read an inspirational passage, not even the whole book? Have I been more sensitive to not hurting the feelings of others? Have I been a little more courteous when I'm driving on the road? Have I spent more time, even in little moments, in Ananda? And then grow it. Use all the techniques that we have, but grow that awareness of Ananda, and then the details, they take care of themselves. Yoganandaji said that the minutes are more important than the years. The way to get to self-realization is to spend many moments in satsang. And yes, we get that vibration more easily when we're in the physical presence of it. But and we utilize that as one of the great tools. How easy is it to meditate at home compared to in the group? The group, it's much easier. How easy it is to learn how to be happy when you're around other happy people. It's just so much easier. So we create this Ananda family in order to experience more of Ananda from wherever we're at, and then to expand it farther and farther until we achieve a union with the true Ananda Sangha, is omnipresent Satchidananda. Namaskar.